Yeah, that feeling. You put a ton of effort into creating something online, something really important to you, maybe a detailed guide or some creative work.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of vanishes. It's frustrating because, well, it feels like there's no real way to see the impact or get fair value for that work.
Yeah, it's a real gap. And if you think about it, the way we measure online value right now, it feels a bit broken, doesn't it?
Totally.
We get so caught up in these fleeting metrics like views or likes,
Right.
which honestly don't always show genuine influence or, lasting contribution.
Exactly. And that's why we're really keen to explore something completely different today. We're looking at the Decentralized Semantic Web Mirror,
Hmm.
DSWM.
And especially how it connects with the vision of scalable community for open online learning.
Yes, their big idea.
Hmm.
It's to build this decentralized, open source learning space, one that actually rewards learners and creators based on the real impact of what they contribute.
School's vision is pretty broad. They're talking AI-powered personalized learning, integrated personal knowledge management tools, even decentralized governance. And they're looking at things like blockchain for tracking time contributions, maybe a DAO structure for decisions. But the core thing is shifting value towards demonstrable long-term impact.
Okay, so where does DSWM fit into all this?
Think of DSWM as the foundational tech making this new value system possible.
Right.
It's a system that mixes decentralization with logging, verifying, and essentially mirroring user-contributed knowledge. And crucially, it includes this verifiable impact ledger and semantic link indexing.
And the really interesting part, it's specifically designed to avoid that whole token speculation mess we see elsewhere.
That's a key point. DSWM isn't about launching another crypto coin that goes wild.
Uh-huh.
It's about building, let's call it, a transparent, stable backbone for tracking genuine influence, providing that proof of how knowledge actually spreads and gets used.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then. We want to understand how DSWM's verifiable knowledge logging and semantic linking, how they tackle the problems with current platforms in valuing contributions and empowering creators, especially through the lens of schools' impact pay model.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's maybe start by unpacking the problems with the current setup a bit more.
Yeah, good idea. To really get why DSWM and school are needed, we have to look at the issues online now. One source we looked at mentions these manipulative algorithmic platforms.
Right, the ones basically designed to hijack our brain chemistry for profit.
Exactly. They're built to be addictive often, not necessarily to provide deep value or understanding. The goal is keeping you scrolling, keeping you clicking.
Which benefits the platform, sometimes at the expense of quality, or even our own focus.
And that connects to another point in our notes, this idea of rampant overconsumption. It's fueled by cheap stuff, fast fashion, disposable tech, and online, maybe disposable content too.
Like content designed for quick hits rather than lasting value.
Precisely. The current online systems, with their focus on huge numbers of fleeting interactions, kind of accidentally reward that low-quality, high-volume stuff over things that are maybe more substantial, more enduring.
That definitely clicks with that feeling some creators get. You pour intellectual energy into something valuable, and the system just doesn't seem equipped to recognize that effort fairly.
Yeah, it feels like shouting into the void sometimes. Your work disappears without a real trace or reward.
And how we even find content.
Hmm.
You mentioned limitations there.
Well, one source hinted that current recommendation systems might lack depth. They don't always grasp the context or connections between pieces of information,
Oh, okay.
which suggests we need something more, well, link-driven. Something that understands the relationships we create between ideas.
Which brings us nicely back to DSWM. How does it actually propose to work? What's the core mechanism?
Okay, so DSWM is fundamentally about semantically reindexing web content. The key insight, as one source puts it, is that humans shape meaning. We do it through linking, curating, adding context.
So it's not just algorithms sorting things.
It's recognizing the connections people make and, importantly, why they make them.
So links become more than just navigation. They're like interaction tokens.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. DSWM aims to track not just what is linked, but who linked it, and ideally, the reason behind that link.
Okay.
And that lets you build collaborative filtering and trust systems based on those meaningful connections rather than just, follower counts or upvotes.
So how does it work technically? What makes the tracking and verifying possible?
It relies on a few core things. First, content hashing gives every piece of content a unique, immutable digital fingerprint.
Like a permanent ID.
Right. Then, semantic hashing this helps the system understand the meaning and relationships in the content, making it searchable based on those connections.
Not just keywords, but actual concepts.
Uh-huh. And finally, by linking to previous versions, it keeps a history. You get this transparent audit trail of how content evolves.
So you can see the lineage of an idea.
Exactly. And to make it all verifiable and open, they propose this semantic CDN. Think of it like a distributed public library catalog.
Okay.
Key info about the content title, topics, where it's mirrored, that semantic hash gets logged in public ledger blocks, so updates are auditable, and there's proof the content exists in the system.
Gotcha. So we're building this detailed, verifiable map of knowledge based on human connections. How does that fundamentally change value attribution compared to, just counting views and likes?
Right. This is the crucial link to school's idea of impact tracking instead of those fleeting metrics.
Yeah.
DSWM, as the engine underneath, lets you track the long-term influence, things like how content gets remixed, how it's cited, how it fuels collaboration or deeper learning.
So you're measuring the ripple effect, the actual use and reuse of knowledge.
Precisely. And this opens the door for automated rewards. School imagines using this data, maybe combined with tracking actual engagement time, to compensate creators based on pedagogical value, on lasting influence, not just initial click counts.
Wow, okay. That really flips the incentives, doesn't
It
it?
does. Instead of optimizing for clicks, creators are incentivized to make high-quality, genuinely useful educational resources.
And the compensation itself could be nuanced.
Yeah. The notes mention fractional payout shares, so the original creator might get a larger share,
Like suppose.
while people who build on it or adapt it get partial shares. The system could even factor in decay, like how relevant content stays over time.
Interesting. There was also this idea of direct citation mentioned as a way to show impact outside of formal tests. How would that work?
Think of it as a more organic way to give credit. Within school, maybe in discussions or projects, you could verifiably link back to the specific sources that informed your contribution.
I see.
It creates this clear, auditable trail from the original content to its application, strengthening that impact tracking.
Okay, so DSWM provides the transparent plumbing for logging knowledge and tracking impact. How does this empower creators compared to, say, the big platforms now?
Well, first off, the decentralization itself is huge. Building on DSWM means creators aren't solely reliant on these centralized giants with their opaque algorithms and shifting goalposts.
More control, less dependence.
Right. They potentially have more agency over their work and how it's seen within the school ecosystem.
And transparency is obviously a big theme here.
Absolutely. That zero trust consent framework idea really hammers this home.
How so?
It's about making metadata usage completely transparent, auditable, and crucially, optional for users, giving individuals real control over their data. That builds trust.
We also talked about DSWM being anti-speculative. How does schools' approach to tokens fit that?
Schools' proposed impact tokens are designed very carefully. They'd likely be non-transferable. You couldn't just trade them on an exchange.
Okay. Not like Bitcoin.
No. And they might be tied to specific time periods for redemption and only have value within the school ecosystem for accessing content or rewarding creators. The explicit goal is killing speculation. The focus stays on actual impact and contribution.
I remember reading that note. Time flows into creators proportionally during user interaction, but carries no tradable value. That really nails the anti-speculation point.
Exactly. It's about valuing the engagement and the knowledge itself, not creating a tradable asset.
Okay, so DSWM is the verifiable data layer. How does it specifically act as the backbone for schools' impact economy?
It provides the raw, trustworthy data school needs for its impact tracking and compensation engine. Without DSWM's verifiable logs, measuring that influence accurately would be, well, really difficult.
Right.
And the semantic linking part is key too. It lets school understand the relationships between knowledge pieces, tracing how learning and influence actually flow.
And that link-driven structure also changes how you discover content within school.
Yes, definitely. They talk about a link-driven recommender infrastructure. So instead of algorithms pushing stuff based on who knows what,
Yeah, the black box.
recommendations would stem from those meaningful connections and actual usage patterns visible in the DSWM data. It aims for a much more personalized, relevant learning path for you.
Sounds much more intentional, context-aware.
That's the idea.
Wow.
And our notes even mention that cool concept of a digital twin of your intellect within school,
Oh my.
built on the data DSWM logs. Imagine the potential for personalized learning support, maybe even training your own AI agents based on your verified knowledge graph.
Wow, okay, so pulling it all together, DSWM as this transparent, verifiable knowledge logging system, it really feels like a fundamental shift, moving away from those easily gamed superficial metrics towards recognizing genuine intellectual impact.
And when you place that within school's vision, it really could empower creators. It offers a clear, auditable, fair way to recognize and maybe compensate contributions based on their lasting value.
Ultimately, this whole approach, it seems to hold this really exciting promise, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Fostering a more equitable, knowledge-rich online world.
Where the incentives actually align with creating and sharing genuinely valuable stuff that makes a difference.
Yeah. Which leaves us with a pretty interesting thought for you, the listener. Imagine this future. Your learning journey directly feeds into a transparent, rewarding system for the people creating knowledge. If that were the case, what kind of content would you prioritize engaging with? And maybe, what kind of content would you feel inspired to create yourself?
It's definitely something to chew on as these decentralized knowledge systems and the future of online learning continue to evolve. Fascinating stuff.